Listening section directions. This test measures your ability to understand conversations and lectures in English. The listening section is divided into two separate timed parts. You will hear each conversation or lecture only one time. After each conversation or lecture, you will answer some questions on it. The questions typically ask about the main idea and supporting details. Some questions ask about a speaker's purpose or attitude. Answer the questions based on what is stated or implied by the speakers. You may take notes while you listen. You may use your notes to help you answer the questions. Notes will not be scored. In some questions, you will see this icon. This means that you will hear, but not see. Part of the question. Some of the questions have special directions. These directions appear in a gray box on the screen. Most questions are worth 1 point. If a question is worth more than 1 point, it will have special directions that indicate how many points you can receive. You must answer each question. After you answer, click on Next, then click on OK to confirm your answer and go on to the next question. After you click on OK, you cannot return to previous questions. In an actual test or during this practice test, a clock at the top of the screen will show you how much time is remaining. The clock will not count down while you are listening. The clock will count down only while you are answering questions. Click on Continue at any time to dismiss these directions.
Listen to part of a conversation between a student and a librarian.
Hi, I sincerely hope you can assist me.
That is why I'm here. So, what can I do for you?
I'm struggling to find relevant papers for a literature review for my psychology course. I don't know where to begin looking.
You mentioned this was for your psychology course, correct? So, your attention is on
Dream interpretation.
Well, you've selected a goal in mind, which is an excellent start. There are several things. Have you considered if the professor has set any resources on reservation for you to review?
Aha! That was the only thing I knew was necessary. I only downloaded 1 paper, but I need 3 more on my topic from 3 different publications.
Then, let's begin your going on search for those. The reference section contains printed editions of around 20 psychological publications. These were published during the past year. I just realized there's a journal called Sleep and Dreams.
Oh yes, the article that I recently downloaded is from that publication, so I'll have to get into additional sources.
Well, honestly, most of our resources are now offered electronically. You may use the library's computers to browse psychological records, online publications, and papers. For example, if you wish to search by title with the term dream, simply enter it in, and any papers with dream in the title will appear on the screen.
Well, that's fantastic. I wish I could do this from home, but sad.
However you are able to. All of the library's resources and online resources are available from any computer linked to the university network.
Honestly, it's unbelievable that I was not informed of that. However, looking through all of that data and all of those resources still sounds like it will take some time.
It could be a little off, but at least you've already limited your search to publications about dream interpretation. You've also definitely discovered that the article you downloaded has an abstract or summary at the top of the first page. You can choose to view the abstracts of the websites and online resources on your computer screen when you open them. This can save you time when deciding whether to read the whole article or not.
Okay, so abstracts. Without a doubt, they'll make the concept more feasible. I think I must try the online search while I am already here. You can realize, just in case.
Absolutely. I'll be here till 5 this afternoon, and that computer is available there.
Thank you. Now I feel more confident about my assignment.
Why does the student want to see the librarian? What is the librarian's opinion on the publications and articles that are available at the library? What does the librarian advise the student to take to save time? What is the likely reason behind the woman's decision to use the library computer? Why does the woman mention this?
Honestly, it's unbelievable that I was not informed of that.
Listen to part of a lecture in a contemporary art class. All right, class, today we start with a new project. Remember how I said you'd visit an art show and write about it? Well, it's happening now. The exhibit is at the Ferry Street Gallery and runs all month, so you have plenty of time. The artist is Rose Franson, who might be new to you since she's young. Her style is unusual, different from what we've seen in this class. She calls it realistic impressionism, which combines two famous styles you might know: realism, with accurate pictures, and impressionism, with loose brushwork and capturing a feeling. When you go, there's a farm scene right at the entrance I want you to focus on. This painting shows the impressionist side of her work. It's outdoors, everyday life, but with rough brushstrokes, blurry lines, and strange colors. The sky isn't really sky-colored, and the fence is blue, but somehow it all feels like a cold winter farm day. That's the impressionist part. Speaking of farms, something interesting about Franson is that she used to visit a place called the Sales Barn when she moved back home. This is where farmers sold animals. She, and later at other places like dance halls, would watch people move. This helped her art by showing her how people stand, walk, and even just stay still. But what about realism? What real-life details should we look for in Franson's work? Exactly. Realistic art shows things honestly, without making them look better than they are, and it uses everyday subjects. Another painting to watch for is one with a young woman surrounded by pumpkins. Her face is so detailed it almost looks like a photo, with a not-so-perfect nose and messy hair. That's realism. But the background? It's a mess of thick, zigzagging brushstrokes and bright colors, with orange everywhere and even a bit of electric blue. Franson's art is easy to understand. Some artists, you need to know their whole life story to appreciate them. But here's a bit about Rose Franson anyway. She went to art school, but a teacher told her she wasn't good at drawing and should do advertising instead. So she took both advertising and art classes until someone at an ad agency saw her work and said she could be an artist. But things aren't always easy, and Franson even had to paint portraits at events like art fairs to make money for her own art supplies. But no matter what, she never stopped painting. And now, Francine is very successful. Her art is shown all over the country. Most of us would give up if things were that hard. But the important thing is to keep going and never give up on your dreams. That's what really matters.
What is the goal of this lecture? What comments does the professor have on Francine's picture of a farm scene? Francine went to the sales barn, but why? What is the professor suggesting about the image of a young woman surrounded by pumpkins? What's the reason for discussing Francine's early struggles? What does the professor's statement imply?
Francine's art is easy to understand. Some artists, you need to know their whole life story to appreciate them. But here's a bit about Rose Francine anyway.
Listen to part of a lecture in a geology class. Let's start by talking about how we figure out the age of geological features, like land formations. It's a process called dating. Today, I want to focus on a specific dating technique. Why does this matter? Getting the age right is really important for doing good analysis. Basically, if you're trying to figure out how a land formation came to be, one of the first things you'd probably want to know is how old it is. It's a really basic thing. Think about the Grand Canyon, for example. We geologists thought we had a pretty good idea of how this formation in the southwestern United States was made. Our knowledge tells us that it was made of sandstone that turned into rock somewhere between 150 and 300 million years ago. Before it became rock, it was just regular sand, basically part of a huge desert. Until recently, Most of us thought the sand came from a nearby old mountain range that had worn down over time. But now, we found out something different and really surprising using a method called uranium lead dating. I should mention that this method has been around for a while, but it has been improved recently. I'll explain more about this in a moment. Uranium lead dating has given us some unexpected results. A pair of geologists found that about half of the sand in the Grand Canyon actually came from the Appalachian Mountains. This is really surprising because the Appalachian Mountain Range is thousands of kilometers to the east of the Grand Canyon. It seems pretty hard to believe, right? Naturally, the question is, how did this sand end up so far to the west? The idea is that big rivers and wind carried the sand westward, where it mixed in with the sand that was already there. This finding was really groundbreaking, mainly because of uranium lead dating. Why is this big news? Well, as everyone in this class should know, we usually look at the type of grains in sandstone, the actual bits in the rock, to figure out where it came from. You can also look at the patterns of wind or water that brought the grains to their location to figure out which way it was going. But those methods only work up to a point, and that's not what these two geologists did. Uranium lead dating let them look at the grains of zircon in the sandstone. Zircon is a material that has radioactive uranium, which makes it really useful for dating. If you measure the amount of lead in the zircon grain, you can figure out when the grain was formed. After that, you can find out the age of zircon from different mountain ranges. Then you can compare the age of the zircon in the sandstone in your sample to the age of the zircon in the mountains. If the ages match, it means the sandstone used to be part of that mountain range. Is everyone following along? Great. In this case, uranium lead dating was used to show that half of the sandstone in the samples was formed at the same time the granite in the Appalachian Mountains was formed. So because of this new way of doing uranium lead dating, we've been able to figure out that one of our main ideas about the Grand Canyon was wrong. As I said before, uranium lead dating has been around for a while, but until recently, you really had to study a lot of individual grains to do it, and it took a long time to get results. It just wasn't very efficient or accurate. But technical improvements have cut down on the number of grains you have to study, so you get your results faster. I think uranium lead dating is going to become a more and more popular way of dating. There are some pretty exciting things we could do with uranium lead dating. For example, there's the theory that Earth's continents were once all connected and only split apart relatively recently. With uranium lead dating, we could prove that more convincingly. If the continents show signs of once being connected, it could really tell us a lot about the early history of the planet's geology.
What is the main topic of the professor's discussion? According to most geologists, what was the source of the Grand Canyon sandstone before the uranium lead analysis? Summarize the uranium lead dating steps in the right order. Place these events in the correct sequence for uranium lead dating. Why has uranium lead dating become more popular recently, as per the professor? Why does the professor mention the splitting of Earth's continents? What does the professor suggest with this statement?
Well, as everyone in this class should know, we usually look at the type of grains in sandstone.
Listen to part of a conversation between a student and his professor.
Hello, Matthew. I'm pleased you were able to stop by today. You've been watching Mr. Grebel's third grade class for your education approaches paper, correct?
Yes, that's right. I visit Johnson Elementary School to observe Mr. Grable teaching his students. It's been incredible. I'm learning so much just by watching him. I'm really grateful that classroom observations are part of the education program requirements. It's like the most valuable preparation for becoming a good teacher.
I'm happy to hear you feel that way, Matthew. You know, that's exactly what we aim for. I've been going through your observation notes, and I'm particularly intrigued by what's happening with the astronomy unit he's been covering.
The astronomy unit?
It appears Mr. Grebel has really grasped the interdisciplinary teaching approach we've been discussing in our class.
Oh, I see. So like when he was teaching astronomy, he didn't just focus on planet names. He used it as a way to introduce mythology.
Is that so? How did he manage that?
Well, some kids already knew the planet names, but they weren't aware of the meanings behind them, the stories they're connected to.
So, he
He brought in Greek and Roman mythology as a way of explaining. You know how Jupiter is the largest planet, right? And Jupiter was the name of the chief god in Roman mythology? So since Jupiter, the planet, is the biggest in our solar system, it's like the ruler of the planets, just as Jupiter was the ruler of all the gods.
Oh, Matthew, that's an excellent example.
Yeah. And each student picked a planet to research, write about, and present on. They went to the library for their research, then gave presentations about their chosen planet.
So, in a single science unit focused on astronomy, the students also learned about Greek and Roman mythological literature, practiced research skills in the library, wrote reports, and developed their oral presentation abilities.
That's right. He used this one subject to teach third graders all those skills: how to use library books, write reports, and even speak in public. Plus, they had a great time doing it.
You know, Matthew, this is exactly what we've been talking about in our class. I'm sure everyone could learn something from your experience. Matthew, I'd love for you to share about this astronomy unit in class on Wednesday.
Really? Because I don't think I'll have time to write my paper by then.
Oh, you won't need to write anything new just yet. For Wednesday, just use your classroom observation notes and explain the things we've discussed today.
Okay, that sounds doable.
What is the main topic of the conversation? What does Matthew think about observing Mr. Grable's third grade class? Why does Matthew talk about Greek and Roman mythology? What key skills did Mr. Grable teach his third grade class? What will Matthew likely do in next Wednesday's class?
Listen to part of a lecture in a biology class.
Today, we'll be examining a case study on how certain animals have adapted their behavior to their environments. You were assigned to read about two species, the eastern marmot and the Olympic marmot. Marmots are members of the rodent family. They're large ground squirrels, comparable in size to an average house cat. They inhabit various environments. Despite spending a large portion of the year in hibernation, this case study suggests marmots are still considered ideal subjects for animal behavior research. Can anyone explain why?
Well, when they're not hibernating, they can be spotted in open areas. They're also quite active during daylight hours, which makes observing them relatively easy, doesn't it?
Indeed. Let's start by discussing eastern marmots. They're found across eastern North America, where the climate is temperate and the growing season extends for at least 5 months annually. This is when they engage in mating, play, and feeding.
Oh, I see. Initially, I wasn't clear on the meaning of growing season from just reading. But now I understand. It's the time it takes for them to grow, right? So it would be 5 months?
I apologize, but that's not correct. It's not about the marmot's growth period. It refers to when food is available. That's when the ground isn't snow-covered and there's no frost on the grass and, the vegetative parts of plants, herbs, and flowers that marmots consume. So, the growing season relates to the availability of their food sources, okay? Now, how would you characterize the eastern marmot's social habits?
Well, they're highly territorial, solitary, and quite aggressive, even towards other eastern marmots. Their mating ritual seems rather impersonal too.
Uh-huh. When they emerge from hibernation in spring, their mating process begins. For them, well, they come together to mate and then part ways. About 6 to 8 weeks after birth, the young leave their mothers.
Really? Just 6 weeks? Is it possible for the offspring to survive on their own at such a young age?
Well, it's not as if they're unprepared for the real world because they are. Remember, they mature quickly and the weather is favorable. Also, they inhabit open fields with abundant edible vegetation. So around 6 weeks after birth, eastern marmots are just old enough to take their chances surviving in the temperate environment. How does this relate to their behavior?
Oh, I get it. Since the climate isn't too harsh, eastern marmots don't need to rely on each other much, and they don't really need to stay together as a family to survive either.
Uh-huh. In contrast, what about the Olympic marmots?
Well, they live together as families and care for their young until they're at least 2 years old. They're very friendly with each other. What I really like is that they even have greeting ceremonies. And they're not at all aggressive and territorial like the eastern marmots. So their social behavior is so different from eastern marmots because of the climate where they live? That seems so strange.
Well, Olympic marmots inhabit high meadows in the Olympic Mountains, where weather conditions are much harsher. There's a lot more wind and snow. The growing season only lasts about 2 to 3 months. So in that much shorter period, all the Olympic marmots, both male and female, eat, play, work, and nurture the young together. Because the climate is so harsh, cooperation increases the survival rate of the Olympic marmots. They keep their young at home until they're physically capable of surviving independently. This might explain why the social behavior of Olympic marmots is so unlike that of Eastern marmots.
What is the lecture mainly about? Why are marmots good for observation? What do these marmots do? According to the professor, what causes different marmot behavior? Why does the professor make this statement?
Um, oh, I apologize, but that's not correct.
Why does the professor say this?
Well, it's not as if they're unprepared for the real world because they are.